A Girl in the Woods. A girl was missing in Leighton Hall. The girl was called Lindy. She was no more than a young scullery maid in the grand hall, not someone the maids would worry about. In fact, they were more annoyed. Where on earth could that scullery maid be? What's her name? Linda? She's called Lindy. We'll probably find her back with a broken leg. But would she ever come back? If the maids had seen Lindy at the moment, they wouldn't have been talking about her coming back. The blonde, thin girl of 13 was carrying her slightly grubby suitcase, which contained all the belongings she ever had. As the sun was lowered into the horizon and snow started to fall, Lindy walked towards the woods. She wasn't going to stay in Leighton Hall. She was escaping. Lindy thought about her life as she walked. She had spent 12 years in an orphanage and 1 year at the hall. The orphanage had punishments for the smallest wrongs, and the children were given cheap things, but the hall wasn't much better. A few times every week, slaps and cries of pain would come from the kitchen. The only thing Lindy had truly loved was a sweet bird she named Tweets. The bird came with her. Snow started drifting onto the frozen ground. Now a distance away from the hall, Lindy tried to keep the cold away by chatting to a bird. I'm so glad I got away from that place, Tweets. I took useful things. There's a thermos of water and some bread and sweets. I made a good plan, didn't I? The bird chirped as though she understood. She always seemed to understand. Lindy became quiet. She started thinking. Where would she go when she got to town? She remembered a nice boy who came to visit the hall before. He was called Jones, and he lived in a big house that had many maids in town. Could she work there? No! She never wanted to be a scullery maid again. Besides, she vowed never to see Jones again when he said Tweets was just a silly bird. The sun went down. It was colder than ever now, and Lindy decided to have dinner. The bread was dry and the sweets were frozen hard. Lindy didn't feel too clever when she realized that she had filled the thermos with cold water. How she longed for warmth. After dinner, they moved on. There was the woods, but what a scary place. It was dark, and the stubs on trees looked like eyes. Ankle deep in snow, Lindy and Tweets trotted into the forest path. The eyes on trees stared at them. They are good eyes, they are friendly eyes, chanted Lindy, hoping to give herself courage, but it didn't help. The wind howled and snow fell in giant flakes. It was pitch black in the forest, but Lindy saw something flickering. What could it be? She walked towards the yellow flicker. Walking to the flicker, Lindy and Tweets looked. The light was coming from a round window, a window no higher than Lindy's knee. It must be on a house half buried in the ground. There was a small door beside the window. Should I knock, Tweets? Asked the girl hesitantly. The bird looked confident, and she chirped loud and clear. Lindy knocked loudly, and the door opened. In the slab of yellow light stood an old lady. My, oh my, a girl from town, she cried. No, madam, I am from Leighton Hall, said Lindy. However, the lady's attention seemed to be drawn to Tweets. Is this your bird? She asked. When Lindy said yes, her face broadened into a smile. Come in, do come in. Have some cocoa and biscuits. And she tottered back inside. Lindy walked into the house. A warm fire burned in the fireplace, and 2 cozy armchairs were in the room. In the corner of the room, where the light didn't quite shine, were 4 portraits. The old lady gave Lindy cocoa and cookies, and gave Tweets water and seeds. Lindy, sitting down snugly, told the old lady her whole life story. "And what's your name?" she asked. "It's Seasons." "Seasons?" asked Lindy. She was confused. It was a strange name. "Yes, I control the seasons," declared the old lady, tottering over to the portraits in the corner. Following her, Lindy saw 4 faces: a girl barely in her teens, a young woman in her 20s, a lady 40 or so, and a picture of the old lady herself, an old woman in her 60s. "These are all me, my dear," she said. The old lady tottered back into the chair. "Well, young girl, I start as spring, as a little girl. In summer, I grow into the young lady. Then in fall, I turn into the woman in her 40s. In winter, I am as you see me now. Then in spring, I turn young, and it happens all over again." Lindy was so amazed she couldn't speak. Could the seasons really be controlled by this woman? "Now, I don't usually tell guests who I am, but since you have Taisha with you, you must be special. More biscuits?" asked Seasons. "Yes, please. Who's Taisha?" Lindy was more curious by the moment. "She's your bird, Taisha. I know her well." Seasons said the name like Taisha, and it sounded both exotic and beautiful, more beautiful than Tweets. Before Lindy could ask Seasons if Taisha lived in the woods before, the old lady got up and showed her around the house. "Here's my bedroom, and there's the guest room, for I sometimes have animal friends staying." She pointed to the 2 bedrooms, each one with a beautiful quilt and pillows. "There's the kitchen. The storeroom is underground, where I store food." Lindy could smell the vegetables. That night, Lindy slept in the guest room, with Tweets, or rather Taisha, beside her. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt amazed at how her knowledge of the seasons changed. The next morning, it had stopped snowing. Lindy told Seasons, "I must go to the town now." "Go? Why, don't you want to stay and be a forest child?" asked the old woman, before whistling shrilly. All of a sudden, there was the crunch of snow, and 7 boys and girls came trampling towards the old lady. "Lindy, meet Scott, Charles, Davy, Ferdinand, Bella, Marianne, and Zoe. They are my helpers here." The children all waved at Lindy, who waved back. Everyone introduced themselves, but just as Zoe spoke her name, there came the sound of hoofs. "Hide!" cried Seasons. The whole gang, including Seasons, disappeared in 2 seconds, leaving Lindy on the forest path. Davy pulled her behind a big tree. A carriage appeared, and on it sat Jones and his father. The burly man asked, "Jones, do you know that the young maid Lindy has disappeared from Leighton Hall?" "Yes, father, along with her silly bird." Lindy shook with anger. "Shh," said Davy. The carriage went. "Phew, that was a close call," said Bella, walking out from behind a bush. "That's what being a forest child is like," declared Davy. "If you can't hide, then you're dead." Every other child walked out from their hiding place. "So, young girl, don't you want to join?" questioned Seasons. Lindy shook her head. I think I would be better in town. There are things I like there. And with that, every single forest child started talking. What things? Fun fairs? Riding a berry-tenny merry-go-round? Sweet? We have yummy berries here on any bush. Besides, we send Zoe shopping on the holidays. Games? Girl, you can bet your life climbing our trees is better than chess. The kids babbled so much that Lindy almost forgot about the rides at the town fun fair. Still, the girl couldn't make up her mind. She had a feeling that a girl's future was in town, not in a queer forest with strange trees. But before she could open her mouth to tell everyone what she thought, Season spoke up. Taisha hadn't been home to see her family for 4 years, she said. She would find it hard to be away from you, but hard to leave with you as well. That did it. Lindy couldn't possibly leave her poor bird or take her away with her. Besides, with Seasons and the gang, what was to worry about here? All right, I'll stay, she declared. The forest children let out a cheer. Seasons smiled. Taisha fluttered into her arms. Good idea, said Scott, who seemed the leader of the gang. However, there's a challenge for you. The gang led Lindy to a dizzyingly tall tree. Every forest child has climbed our tallest tree, yonder, y'all, before. Some of us has climbed it half a dozen times. Charles has a record of 89 seconds. Even Bella can touch the top in 3 minutes. So can Seasons. In spring, that is. Now, show us, new girl. Lindy gulped. She wasn't good at climbing, but she started anyway. The whole gang rushed up the tree with Lindy. The girl kept up for a while, but soon she was wobbling on a branch. Charles started up yonder, y'all, like a giant squirrel. Even Bella was much faster than Lindy. Come on, shouted Marianne, already atop the tree. You can do it, called the children. Branch by branch, Lindy made it. They perched on the tree, laughing and chatting. All right, come down now, shouted Seasons. It's time to make lunch. Scott, Giles, get some water from the river. Davy, Ferdinand, collect some firewood. Bella and Marianne can get some lettuce and radishes from the storeroom. As for Zoe and Lindy, she paused and looked at the 2 girls. You can help me cook. Lindy licked her lips. She couldn't wait to be a girl of the forest.